And as we prepare to mark 2 years since the atrocities Hamas committed on October 7th, it's indicative of another war Israel is fighting beyond Gaza's borders, the PR war. U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, joins us live from Jerusalem. Ambassador, so great to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. The UN has been irrelevant for decades, and so I'm not really all that surprised by this news out of the United Nations. But I have been sort of surprised over the last months and I guess a couple of years at the degree to which Israel has struggled with the PR war inside the United States. Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say, Charlie. One of the things we could refer to is that old saying that says that a lie can get halfway around the world before truth gets its boots on. And that's one of the things that Israel is having to confront every single day. They're not just fighting a war in Gaza, trying to get hostages out and end what has been an existential threat to them since October the 7th, but they're also dealing with a war with all of the PR nonsense that's coming all over the world, but particularly out of Europe. And it's very troubling because most of the things that are being said, for example, Israel is a genocidal state. That's nonsense.
Right.
If Israel is trying to commit genocide, Charlie, they're really, really bad at it because they could have taken Gaza down in about 2.5 hours. It's the size of Las Vegas. So they're not committing genocide. It's nonsense. They put more food into Gaza than has ever been put into a war zone in the history of mankind. Yet you would think that they were starving the people. If anybody's hungry in Gaza, it's because Hamas has stolen the food, won't let it in. They take it, they steal it, then they sell it to people on the black market. And with the profits, 500 million last year, they buy bullets and bombs and try to kill more Jewish people.
And of course, to this day, the terrorists continue to hold 48 hostages from that terrorist attack. But the facts remain, when you look at polling in the United States, it's bleak in terms of the direction it's going. What is the strategy for fixing that?
I think Israel's got to do a better job of getting their message out. There's no question about that. And it's a conversation we've had with the Israelis many, many times. But I also think that it's part of a bigger global problem. There is just a really serious issue with anti-Semitism across not just the U.S., but across the world. Why? It's irrational. But I hope people in America will understand that the hatred toward Israel, the hatred toward Jewish people, is ultimately a hatred toward those of us in all of Western civilization upon whose culture and civilization has been built on a Judeo-Christian understanding of the reality of God, of the fact that there is an immutable law. That law comes from God, and if we violate it, if we begin to worship the creation more than the Creator, then we will end up with a real heavy anti-Semitic and ultimately anti-Christian worldview.
Ambassador Huckabee, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Charlie. Thank you.
A German shop owner in the northern city of Flensburg posted a sign on Wednesday that Jews are banned from entering his store, sparking outrage among state officials in Schleswig-Holstein. Hans Weltenreich, the 60-year-old owner of the store that sells Gothic utensils and technical literature, posted a sign that reads, "Jews are banned from entering here. Nothing personal. No anti-Semitism. Just can't stand you." Germany's largest daily newspaper, Bild, reported on Thursday that Reich defended his anti-Jewish sign. He told the paper that, "I watch the news every evening. And when I saw what the Jews were doing in the Gaza Strip, I lost my temper and printed out the poster." Israel launched a defensive war against the Hamas terrorist movement in Gaza after Hamas slaughtered over 1,200 people on October 7, 2023, including American citizens. Reich said the police told him on Wednesday evening that he has to take down the poster. The Schleswig-Holstein Minister of Culture, Dorit Stenke, and Gerhard Ulrich, the state's controversial anti-Semitism commissioner, took Reich to task for his reported anti-Semitism, issuing a joint statement on the state government's website. "A sign that denies Jews access to a store is a frightening signal and an attack on the principles of our free coexistence," Stenke said in the statement. She continued, "We cannot allow such things to continue in our society and must take decisive action against it together. Anti-Semitism is a threat to our democracy and must not be tolerated in any form." Ulrich said, "We must stand together against every form of anti-Semitism," adding, "The fight against anti-Semitism is a special responsibility that we bear as Germans." The state prosecutor launched an investigation against Reich for incitement of hatred. Ulrich filed a criminal complaint for incitement of hatred against Reich. A total of 5 criminal complaints were filed against Reich, according to Bild. Anti-Semitic hate speech like this not only hurts those affected, but also disrupts public peace. The Flensburg incident, with its contemptuous rhetoric, is fatally reminiscent of the Nazi hate speech against Jews, said Ulrich. The outbreak of Jew hatred in Flensburg is another example of the growing anti-Semitism in Schleswig-Holstein, the state officials said. In 2024, 588 anti-Semitic incidents were documented, an increase of 390% over 2023. Ulrich, however, has faced accusations that he has contributed to anti-Jewish and anti-Israel sentiments when he previously served as the Protestant Church's bishop for northern Germany. Rabbi Abraham Cooper, the associate dean of the Los Angeles-based Simon Wiesenthal Center, a Jewish human rights organization named after the legendary Nazi hunter, warned about Ulrich's alleged anti-Semitism in December 2022. Cooper urged Schleswig-Holstein's government to dismiss Ulrich, claiming he is unfit to denounce the very anti-Semitism that he unfortunately legitimized and helped to spread in the mainstream of German society.
Ashley Strohmeyer live for us in New York. Ashley, thank you. Let's bring in the co-author of Stolen Youth and the Mom Wars Substack, Bethany Mandel, along with Defense of Freedom Institute spokesperson Angela Morabito. Thank you both for coming on. Bethany, to you first. I mean, you kind of heard what Ashley was saying there. You have these college leaders coming out saying they strongly condemn anti-Semitism. Here's a soundbite from the president of Georgetown University. Watch.
My time is almost gone. If I may, just one more question. When hiring faculty, does Georgetown currently have a vetting process that includes screening for anti-Semitic content and a candidate's public record?
Not at this time, Congressman.
I'm always a little skeptical, Bethany, when they say they condemn anti-Semitism but really haven't made any changes.
Yeah, Georgetown just had to fire the head of their Islamic Studies department because, shocker, he had some ties that were less than desirable for any student at Georgetown. But I'm concerned about rumblings that I'm hearing at Columbia about a deal that is inadequate. Also, I think that the Trump administration really has a mandate right now to take on anti-Semitism, and House Republicans are taking this very seriously. And I'm worried a little bit, actually, honestly, about what we're hearing about the deal that's coming out of Columbia. I hope that it's strong enough that we will see consequences for schools around the country, because this is really the first test case.
Yeah, and we should know very soon. Meantime, a UC Berkeley chancellor was asked about hiring a professor who said that October 7 was justified.
See, I understand freedom of speech, but you get to decide who to hire. Why would you give a position to someone who said October 7th was justified? Why?
Professor Makdisi is a fine scholar. He was awarded that position from his colleagues based on academic standards.
Fine scholar, Angela, good scholar, hates Israel. So,
It's ridiculous. Hearing that person described as a fine scholar is repulsive to me, and it should be to everyone. These are taxpayer-supported institutions, and there's no justification for having federal tax dollars support someone who's going to spread this kind of hate to the next generation. Not only does the Trump administration have a mandate, I believe, from the public who's fed up with what we see at these elite campuses, but they also have a mandate in the law. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act says no federal funding to places that discriminate like this. Anti-Semitism cannot be tolerated on college campuses, and this hearing and the actions of the Trump administration are more proof that they are not taking their foot off the gas pedal. They're not going to let this blow over, as much as some college presidents may hope that it would.
Yeah. Meantime, Bethany, you wrote the following in the New York Post, quoting here, "The left is a cult, and parents can fight it with Supreme Court's blessing. The Supreme Court made it clear the state can't force kids to absorb beliefs that conflict with their family's faith. Now it's up to the parents to make their schools abide by that principle." Expand on that a little bit, if you would, for us, Bethany.
I think that we've seen a secular religion take over on the left. When you put a pride flag on your front steps, that's a statement of your belief. When you put a sign on your front lawn, in this house we believe in science, this has become a religion for those on the left. And in the Supreme Court, we've seen that they've limited the ability of the school districts to teach this LGBT ideology, but this is only one component of this religious faith that they've developed over time that they're very fervent about. And when we see how they talk about climate change, it feels very cultist. It feels very doomsdayist. It reminds me of Heaven's Gate. And I hope that, as we've seen the Supreme Court case decide, you can't teach this component of the religion, that we see it expanded and we see a real grounded way of teaching science in our country as well.
Meantime, the Free Press writes the following: how do you fix schools? Teachers union says stop Trump, ICE, and fascism. One convention delegate from Texas summarized them by telling me the response that a friend of hers got while trying to talk to other union members at this gathering about the best ways to teach reading and writing. We don't have time for that. We've got to fight Trump, her friend was told. Who needs reading and math when you got Trump? I've got 30 seconds for you, Angela.
Then I'll make it quick. This is the teacher union bosses telling you who they are, and we should believe them. The NEA is unique in that it has a federal charter. It has had one for more than 100 years. And the Defense of Freedom Institute has a report actually exposing how they've enjoyed all the privileges of this charter, but none of the responsibilities, like maybe some federal oversight. But tomorrow, there's going to be a bill introduced to potentially yank that charter. So this story isn't over, but we know the unions are not there for students.
Right, and the remedies do not exist. Angela Morabito, Bethany Mandel, thank you both.
The former bishop has said the name Israel is burdened with the horror and misery of this Middle East war. He also compared Israel's security fence with the now-defunct Berlin Wall, suggesting Israel needs to dismantle its security fence. The anti-terrorist fence has saved the lives of thousands of Israelis from Palestinian terrorists coming from the West Bank, also known as the biblical region of Judea and Samaria, according to counter-terrorism officials in Israel.